Hi, my name's Adriana Gallo, and I will be talking about the BP oil spill. The past 10 years in American history are years that many Americans will never forget. Over the past decade, the American government, as well as the American people, have faced many catastrophic events and disasters that will forever be remembered in American history. To name a few events, America found itself facing terrorist attacks, involvement in the war against terrorism, a devastating economic debt, a high unemployment rates, Hurricane Katrina, and the latest environmental disaster, the BP oil spill. On April 20th, 2010, a Deepwater Horizon rig exploded, sending millions of gallons of oil into the Gulf of Mexico, beginning this massive environmental disaster. The massive rig was leased to BP by the drilling company Transocean. Preparations to drill an oil well deep beneath the surface of the Gulf of Mexico were being conducted by BP. Similar dangerous work was done about a year ago at the rig where BP had drilled the deepest and largest oil and gas well ever beneath the water and rock. However, something went terribly wrong and the rig burst up into flames. No one could have predicted this disaster the explosion was about to make. Over the past 50 years, there has been several American oil spills. These spills have sent thousands of gallons of oil into American waters, and perhaps BP in America should have reviewed the causes of these events and taken more caution and responsibility that could have possibly avoided some results of the BP oil spill. Reviewing the history of American oil spills, BP should have used more caution when drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. Dating back to 1976, a tanker called the Argo Merchant ran aground in Massachusetts and spilled roughly 183,000 barrels of oil, producing a slick over 100 miles long. A decade later, in 1989, the Exxon Valdez, on its way to Alaska, skidded onto the rocks in Prince William Sound and spilled 240,000 barrels of crude into the water. Again, in 1990, another tanker accident, the American Trader, leaked 300,000 gallons of crude oil from a gash in the hull that produced a slick over 30 miles long, polluting one of Southern California's biggest nature preserves. Even 21 years after the Exxon oil spill, research is still being conducted of how wildlife animals were killed by the oil. Over 200,000 wildlife animals were killed, and biologists who worked on the Alaska spill are offering their help and expertise to officials in the Gulf of Mexico. Animals in the Alaska spill died mainly of liver disease, the toxic fumes, or brain damage. Shockingly, some species of wildlife are still affected even 21 years after the spill. For example, the herring population in the Prince William Sound decreased in the years following the spill, and today they are much smaller and less hardy. Researchers at the Gulf of Mexico site suggest that the biggest fear for fishermen is oil plumes that will poison spawning grounds and affect the future years to come. On July 3, 1979, the world's largest oil spill to this date took place. A burst of gas was sent through the drilling well where Ichthyosaur workers were drilling that day, and within seconds their platform caught on fire and collapsed. Workers at Ichthyosaur scrambled to close the safety valves, but failed to do so, and millions of gallons of oil poured into the Gulf of Mexico. There were no quick fixes or solutions for Ichthyosaur, as it took 10 months to stop the leak. Over 140 million gallons of oil were sent into the Gulf of Mexico, and 170 miles of U.S. beaches were coated in oil. By August, the BP oil spill may devastatingly surpass Ichthyosaur and become the worst oil spill in history. The Ichthyosaur disaster outlined the possibilities of what could have gone wrong with the deep-water drilling and displayed the consequences that could occur. Pemex, a Mexico oil company, helped to clean up the Ichthyosaur disaster, which took almost 300 days to do so. 2 relief wells were built in hopes of capping the oil 150 feet deep in the water. U.S. government documents related to the Ichthyosaur spill showed how, for many years, regulators downplayed the possibility of a similar disaster happening in the United States. American officials thought that such a catastrophe could never occur and that everything was under control. Americans never thought of such possible events even occurring, and industries were encouraged to drill deeper and deeper. Warnings were given from researchers after Ichthyosaur that such deep-water drilling was extremely dangerous, and if an explosion were to occur, it could even be more challenging to cap. Up until 1969, offshore drilling faced little organization, opposition in the United States. After the Ichthyosaur oil spill, the U.S. Congress was faced with pressure to respond. Washington came up with a halt on drilling in some federal waters, and in 1982 was renewed and expanded for close to a decade up until 1992. Oil companies were eager to drill deeper as some areas were still open to drilling around Texas and Louisiana. In 1996, under President Bill Clinton, the Deepwater Royalty Reduction Act was imposed and sparked a rush into new areas in the Gulf of Mexico which were ruled as uneconomical. The Clinton administration was also in favor of an increase in oil services and the reduction in oil imports. By the end of the 1990s, deep-water drilling in the Gulf of Mexico began to rapidly expand. The rapid expansion of deep-water drilling had people worried since little was known about the behavior of oil if it were to be spilled or leaked out into the waters. Even today, scientists reveal that little is known about the behavior of oil when it is released deep beneath the sea surface. Oil companies, as well as the American government, had all the hints in the world about the major oil catastrophe in the American seas. The uncertainty of deep water drilling from previous experiments should have been the first hint not to drill so deep in the Gulf of Mexico. So many precautions and safety measures could have been taken to avoid the massive disaster in the Gulf today. Americans had many warnings and possible failures of drilling so deep. What would be the outcome if drilling was done at different levels in the Gulf today? Could the entire rig explosion have been avoided? Thank you.